Accel, Kuriyuki Hime's Return, Volume 1. The yellow message light blinked in the top right corner of the virtual blackboard. Haruki, who had drifted off in class, shifted the focus of both his eyes, pulling his neck back automatically. As he did, a deep green of the blackboard filled his field of vision faded suddenly. The translucency in the figure of the teacher standing beyond the orderly rows of student backs became clear. The classrooms, his classmates, and the teacher were all real, but the transparent blackboard had closely packed equations on it and were not. The neural linker around the neck of Haruki, or around the back of Haruki's neck, projected the numbers and symbols the teacher wrote in the air directly into his brain. The math teacher, a man in his early 40s, continued with his whispered explanation of the formula while running an empty hand along the blackboard. Only he could see in areas that seemed practically difficult somehow. His voice was nowhere near loud enough to reach Haruki's ears as actual sound, but the Neuralink twined around the teacher's neck amplified and clarified it, conveying it to Haruki. When Haruki brought his gaze back in, the blackboard materialized once again, covered in even more equations than before. It seemed unlikely that the message he had received was a compressed file sent by the teacher packed up today's homework. And given that he was separated from the global net right now, that meant the sender had to be another student in his school. In the 6 months since he started junior high, Haruki had long abandoned the hope that one of the girls might have broken school rules and send him a friendly message. He desperately wanted to drop the message unopened in the trash in the lower left corner of his eye line. But if he did that, he had no idea what was going to happen to him later. Reluctantly, taking advantage of the teacher's turn back, he raised his right hand in the air. This action was real rather than virtual, and clicked on the mail icon, which the tip of his finger in an instant. Bee-ba-boo, baru, boo, biru. A sound that any actual character in graphics, like a flood of primary colors, assaulted Haruki's senses. Then the real message played, not text, but voice. Piggy, today's command order. Several voices laughed gleefully in the background. Bring 2 yakisoba buns and 1 cream melon bun. 3 strawberry yogurts to the roof. 5 minutes later, after lunch. If you're late, it's pork bun punishment for you. If you squeal, it's pork roast punishment. Got it? Another explosion of laughter. Haruki mustered every ounce of willpower to fix his neck in place and not look in the direction of the eyes of he could feel burning in the hole right in his left cheek. He knew he only even more humiliated by the sheer sneers of Arya and his underlings, A and B. If he allowed himself a glance, since you obviously couldn't record messages like this during class or add in 3 kinds of visuals, auditory effects, the message had been prepared in advance. Those guys had too much free time on their hands. And that command order stuff, totally redundant idiots, complete morons. Although he could curse them out in his head, Haruki couldn't even answer this message, much less utter curses out loud. Because if Arya was an idiot the likes of a cockroach indestructible. No matter how the world moved forward, Haruyuki was an even bigger idiot for being bullied by him. He possessed if he possessed even the tiniest bit of courage or ability to act, it'd be an easy thing to submit the several dozen messages he'd saved, including this one, to the school as evidence that and get those guys in trouble. But Haruyuki inevitably ended up thinking about what would come after that. People could talk that they wanted about how half of our lives were lived in the virtual world now that the neural linkers were so ubiquitous that basically everyone in the country had one. But in the end, human beings only existed according to the lowest common denominators, chaining them to their flesh and blood bodies. 3 times a day you get hungry, you go to the toilet, if you get hit it hurts, and if you cry as a consequence. It's so miserable to die. It's so miserable you could die. Link your skills determining which school you went to and how far you made it in the world. These were nothing more than the enormous network industry's branding strategies. What determined the value of a human being at the end of the day was simple: the primitive parameters of appearance and physical strength. This was the conclusion Haruyuki reached at an age of 13. Having reached 60 kilos when he was in the 5th grade, and never having run a 50-meter dash in less than 10 seconds, he was forced to spend 500 yen his mother charged to his Naralika in the morning for lunch money to pay buns and yogurt for Arya and the rest. Still, he ran over a budget. He had a little of 7,000 yen saved up from his allowance, all the money he had in the world. But if he spent that now, he wouldn't be able to buy the Linker game coming out later that month. Haruyuki's ample build got terrible mileage. If he skipped just one meal, he ended up dizzy with hunger. Even so, he had no choice but to suffer through it today. At least he still had one trick to get through the day. A full dive only allowed during lunch. Sucking his hard, round body as far as it would go, Haruyuki ended up for a second school building which held nothing but special classrooms, and because everything from science experiments to home ec cooking classes were conducted virtually now. The building no longer served any purpose, and few people went near it, particularly during lunch. The place was devoid of students. Haruyuki's special hiding place was the boys' washroom in one corner of the dusty hallway. Trudging into this refuge, he stopped with a sigh and looked at the mirror. Above the sink, staring back at him from the cloudy glass, was the fat, bullied kid so hopelessly cliched that this is where a TV show people would roll their eyes at the stereotype. His hair was had a strong will of its own, springing up here and there, and the curves of his cheeks held not even a hint of definition. His uniform tie and silver Neurlinker were eaten up by his flabby neck, as if they were a tightening noose. There was a time when he tried to do something about his appearance. He pushed himself hard, practically giving up eating, and forced himself to go running. But the result of that effort that he collapsed during lunch from anemia and ended up with the lunches of several female students, a now legendary story that haunted him. Ever since Haruki had been determined to ignore his real self, at least while he was a student. He yanked his eyes away from the mirror, moved farther to the washroom. Entering the private stall at the end, he made sure the door was locked and sat on the toilet with the lid down. And the creaking and squeaking of the plastic under his body were old friends. He leaned back against the tank, relaxed, closed his eyes. He chanted the magical incantation to release his soul from the cumbrous form. Direct link.